Right, hello and welcome back to the Cineskinny. It's the podcast from the team behind the Skinny magazine. It is this week Peter Simpson, Jamie Dunn,
hello,
and Lewis Robertson.
Hi.
Anahit is away, but we'll just have to go on without her. But we did, to be fair, talk a lot about the book she's just had out 2 weeks ago.
Oh, she had her day in the sun.
Yeah,
she's gone now.
She really did, and now she's moved on to better things. London, I believe they call it. So if you want to hear that, that is like the previous episode on the feed. It's all about her book BFF, so you can check that out. But Jamie is back this week because last week you were away working on that top secret project that we couldn't tell anyone about, but now we can, which is the indie cinema guide that we did with Film Hub Scotland.
Yes.
Isn't that right, Jamie?
Yes. Can we tell them about it? I don't know. We're doing the launch on Thursday. But yeah, it's a new guide to cinema over the next few months. We're working with Film Hub, and yeah, it's going to help people have a good idea of what's coming out in the next few months. So we've got films like Leonor Will Never Die, which is the film we're going to talk about today, but also got things like Return to Seoul, How to Blow Up a Pipeline. So lots of things that are coming out, and we've got some interviews. We speak to Paul Gallagher, who's the programmer at Glasgow Film Theatre. And yeah, it's just a celebration of cinema, saying why these films are really good and you should go and see them on the big screen. Yeah, that's basically the gist.
At the movies. So yeah, it's 32 pages, it's free, and you can get it at like GFT, Cameo, Dominion, DCA, and indie cinemas and places across Scotland. So that's why Jamie wasn't here 2 weeks ago. Speaking of Return to Seoul, we've got 2 free screenings of that coming up with MUBI. So one at Summer Hall on the 24th of April and CCA on the 26th. Glasgow is sold out. Edinburgh isn't. And then we also have screenings of Matinee, the Joe Dante, John Goodman Giant Ant film on the 10th and 11th of May. theskinny.co.uk/tickets for all of those. Jamie, anything to add?
Yeah, hopefully we can talk about Matinee. I think that's a really fun one to revisit. So if anyone wants to chat about that, we can either chat about it before the screening or after the screening if you go.
Or on maybe the next episode of the podcast, he said, looking at his spreadsheet. So yeah, that's all the kind of table setting out of the way. But Jamie, I believe you also want to talk about, before we get into the big bit, Glasgow Short Film Festival, which just finished at the weekend, and you were at it.
Yes, I was. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see as much as I usually do at Glasgow Short Film Festival, but it is one of my favourite festivals. It's just a really kind of buzzy, fun event. And actually this year was kind of back to full strength. You know, we have had a couple of editions which were online because of you know what. And then last year, there was like just a bit of residual hangover from the pandemic, so there wasn't as many kind of parties and guests, and yeah, it feels a bit smaller. But this year, people were back, baby. The international filmmakers were back. The cinemas were packed.
Did you say that the Soda Jerk screening that we sponsored was so full you couldn't even get a ticket, and you were the one who'd recommended we sponsor?
Yeah, I couldn't get a ticket to anything on the Saturday night, so that was what I was hoping to do. I was hoping to go to that. There was a whole big Saturday night thing done, and I just couldn't get a ticket. We were too successful in promoting the event that I couldn't go along.
You said in the office the other day, we've done too good of a job.
I know. Next time, just do it half-assed, then we'll get in.
Yeah.
No bother. I've learnt my lesson. But yeah, also did get to see the opening night, which was fantastic. It was Omos. I don't know if you remember, we had a feature on this a few months ago in the magazine. It's the short film by Reese Pieces, or Reese Hollis, who's this cabaret performer. And essentially, it's a short film, a really dreamy Wizard of Oz style film following several performers through Puck Glen, which is this kind of forest in Dunoon, which I hadn't really heard about, but it's this kind of really magical, dreamlike place. And yeah, it's basically his premise is he basically just wanted to celebrate kind of great black performers. So he's got this kind of quartet of performers, including him, who just basically perform in this space. Yeah, and it's just a really kind of dreamy, fun film. You've got like a real kind of mix of performers. You've got like an amazing dancer, you have a pole dancer, you have a soprano singer, and then Reese's Pieces himself, who does this kind of rap performance. Really cool, really fun. But what kind of made it even more excellent is after the screening, we had a kind of big performance from a couple of the performers, and it was just in GFT1, and that's not a kind of space we expect to be blown away by performers. But Reese's Pieces did his thing, which was just really great and fun, and he's utterly charming. And if you get a chance to see him in cabaret, I would say go. He's like clearly a master. But I was utterly blown away by the soprano singer Andrea Baker, who is like, I mean, I'm not an expert on classical music or opera, but she's a big deal. And my God, like what a captivating performer! She just like performed with no mic. She performed this kind of amazing opera performance from I think the first opera ever written by a black woman. There was made in the 40s in America. Had like 4 performances and something was never performed again. Basically, this was like the second performance ever in the UK, and then she just did like a whole bunch of like cool like divas. She did like some Aretha Franklin. She did some like Donna Summer, like some Diana Ross. Just like it was the easiest thing in the world and totally captivating and like a normal cinema without any fancy lighting or anything. So yeah, very fun night.
Good stuff. It sounds great. I mean, this idea of captivating people in a cinema, does this mean we have to release giant ants in the cinema for matinee?
Yeah, clearly, forget 4DX. This is how you should do cinema. You should have like just an amazing soprano just come on and just do some stuff.
I think the 4DX thing might be foreshadowing for something that we come on to later.
Yeah.
But for it,
We'll keep that in our pocket.
Yeah,
for
preemptive spoiler for about 15 minutes time. But for now, we'll just go straight on to the first of the new releases we want to talk about this week, which is Leonor Will Never Die, which is, I believe, a Filipino action / drama / various other things. I don't know if you can tell. I didn't have a chance to see it because I was putting on a club night on Saturday night. But Lewis, do you want to take the old college try at a potted synopsis for Leonor Will Never Die?
So it's a really, really weird film in kind of a wonderful way, though. It follows Leonor, who is this elderly screenplay writer who has it's been ages since she's published a screenplay, and how what she writes are these really sort of schlocky 80s style exploitation action films. But of course her ordinary life is, well, it's a lot more bleak, it's a lot more cynical, there's not as much fun stuff going on. Her son, who she lives with, is always getting on about her not paying the bills or whatever. So when she's suddenly struck by a falling television set, she lapses into a coma and finds herself transported into the dream world of the screenplay she's recently been trying to rewrite. It's really funky and just weird and different, and there's a very clear boundary between, quote unquote reality and quote unquote fantasy, which is that this really this sort of 80s sort of Filipino Jean-Claude Van Damme style film is shot in 16mm. It's got hammy acting. These fight scenes are really sort of goofy and ill coordinated. You can see people moving between shots and stuff like that, which is great because I always like seeing stuff filmed in 16mm. I just think it looks really nice and it's a really good way to make stuff look retro and authentic. But here it's quite utilitarian as well. It's drawing a line between these two different worlds. But as time goes on, it just gets more and more meta. The overworld, reality itself, is clearly not reality because there's a translucent ghost just chilling out and no one draws any attention to it. Everyone seems a little bit obsessed with, fantastical things, be they soap operas or, these crazy political campaigns they're running. It gets a bit wild, but I don't want to give any spoilers away. But really, it's quite a cute film. It's quite a cute film about the importance of fantasy in our lives and how comforting that is. And honestly, Sheila Francisco, who plays Leonor, I could watch forever. I think we need more meta action films led by kind old grandmas. I could just watch her do whatever. It's so entertaining.
Yeah, no, when I had the plot, I had a very different film in mind. I don't know if you remember that kind of 90s film Stay Tuned with John Ritter. It was one of my favourites when I was a kid. It's about a guy who's obsessed with TV, and then eventually he gets for some magical reason, he gets a new cable channel and he gets thrown into the TV and he's trying to get out. I thought it was going to be something a bit more straightforward than that, but like you say, this is a bit more magic realism in that from the very opening there's a ghost wandering around. And you think, okay, it's a ghost in the background, fair enough. But then people start interacting with the ghost, and the ghost gives Leonor advice, and then it's hanging out with his dad and having a beer. So it's from the off, the film has a little bit off kilter, and I think it's maybe just a little bit of Filipino cinema is a bit more creative. If you think of Lab Diaz films, for example, it's something we spoke about a little bit with Iana Murray at the GFF podcast. How there's something just a little bit off about it, and I think it's just it's because it's working in a medium that's a bit different from just the standard Hollywood fare that we're so used to, and obviously British cinema has been so influenced by that, but it feels like Filipino cinema for some reason has gone off in its own direction, and it's finding it's taken influences from America, but making its own thing. And this, I think, was completely its own thing. I found it really imaginative. I really love the idea of an artist kind of working through grief through their art, and that's kind of turns out to be the main sort of premise, which is something you've seen loads of times before, but it was just done so originally here. So yeah, in a way, I found that really moving. The sort of idea that this woman is using her art to, and it's an artist who can no longer do their art anymore as well. So it's like it's goofy and as daft as it sounds. It actually has a really kind of melancholic air to it, and I think that comes a lot through the performer. Like she has a kind of very kind of sad-eyed performance. She's like on the brink of tears quite a lot, but she's also kind of like play fighting with the kids in the street. So it's really charming. If anything, I would say maybe it was a little bit too cute. I think what disappointed me a little bit towards the end was I didn't get the kind of emotional release that I felt was coming in the film, because it gets a little bit too meta. And I don't want to spoil how it ends, because it is kind of like very charming, the ending, but I'll tell you what happens.
Okay, if anyone who actually wants to see this film, skip ahead. I'm going to guess from the look on Jamie's face about 90 seconds.
I won't tell you how it ends, but what I'll say is what happens is it's so meta that the director comes in and said, actually, that ending is not right. So you see the ending, it's cute, but it's not quite satisfying. So the director comes in she's talking, I think, to her editor. They're just on a kind of rooftop in Manila somewhere, chatting about like, yeah, this isn't quite right. Like the actors saw the cut and they weren't happy, and then they do something else, and it gets a more satisfying ending. But yeah, it's I feel like maybe if it just went for the more emotional ending, it might have kind of got me more.
I think that, like, what I mentioned earlier is that even the reality of this world is not really reality. There's a ghost there, and weird sort of strange things happen, and I think that there's a cynical way where you could say that's to its detriment, because by not having reality, you can't really feed into the relationship between reality and fantasy. But at the same time, it is still like a really interesting film, just in that it is, doing, this is a film that is being improvised by a full cast and crew and editing team as it goes on. And I've seen like little bits and bobs about that before, but I think this is the best one that I've seen of it. Like, like I say, we sort of go into this 16mm world, but there's also bits where we are sort of in window, like screen grabs of editing software as they pick different clips to use as the ending of the film. So it's very multimedia in that way. So I think that like the discourse of it, or whatever, the theme that it's trying to characterize of the relationship between fantasy and reality might get a little bit lost along the way. But I think that's for the like really, really unique and imaginative style that it really nails.
Yeah, I guess what it reminds me of is something recently is actually Everything Everywhere All at Once. Now, they're totally different in the way that Leonor's a bit more kind of obviously low budget and a bit more kind of rough around the edges, and Everything Everywhere All at Once is utterly slick Hollywood filmmaking. But they're both kind of uninhibited in their filmmaking. Like they're doing things that I've never seen before, and they're using the camera and all the kind of tools of cinema to tell the story imaginatively. And I think that's to me what impressed me most about it, is like how I was surprised by every scene. There was always just something happening which was new, and yeah, maybe a little bit too cute. But then I felt the same about everything all at once as well. I just wasn't satisfied with how it arrived. So maybe it's something to do with me, like because I feel like there's a sort of distancing effect when you can see what the filmmakers playing with all these fun ideas of cinema, it does kind of break you out of it a little bit. So maybe that's more to do with me, and I should just sort of be more attuned to kind of just like letting it wash over me. But yeah, but if you liked everything everywhere all at once, I think you might get a kick out of this as well. It's playing with the same sort of imaginative, your reality can also be fantasy, that kind of idea.
Would it help your immersion if they dropped a television on someone's head in the screening room?
Perhaps.
Really put you in that.
Yeah, if you're concussed, I think everything would be more fun. I'm sure.
We're inventing immersive cinema. Yeah. Look out. So Leonor Will Never Die is out in UK cinemas from the 7th of April. So check out that when it comes out. I've not seen it, but I will soon. All right, the main event, the big one, the top boy, John Wick, he's back. So John Wick 4, Keanu Reeves is back as everyone's favourite sad lad assassin. He's still trying to get his freedom from the high table, so he's off on a globe-trotting adventure to try and hunt down this marquis so he can finally quit the life that he quit, then he unquit, and then he tried to quit again. So Ian McShane, Lawrence Fishburne, and the late great Lance Reddick are all back. New faces to add to the melange of people to be punched are Bill Skarsgård, who plays the aforementioned Marquis in the sparkly suit jacket. Donnie Yen plays Kane, who is like a blind assassin and former pal of Mr. Wick. Rina Sawayama plays Akira. Shamir Anderson plays Mr. Nobody, who's this kind of tracker who just sort of like follows everybody around and then occasionally shoots people. And Clancy Brown is the Harbinger, who turns up dressed like Captain Birdseye, carrying the world's biggest hourglass. Dudes rock. Jamie, what did you think?
I mean, the thing about John Wick is I have such a good time watching these films, like an absolute blast, but they do not stay in my head for even a minute after I leave the cinema. So even though I reviewed the last John Wick film for the Skinny, the actual plot machinations of what was going on totally left me. So I just went in just assuming it would come back, and it took me a good 10, 15 minutes to get my bearings again. Because the thing about John Wick is they actually have no plot. The plot is basically people after John Wick, and he's going to kill them before they kill him. That's essentially it. You could put it on the end of a bullet. It's so short. But what it does have is this really dense mythology and dense lore, and this universe, which is full of the High Table, this kind of mysterious organization that's controlling everything. You have this kind of series of hotels which are kind of safe havens to assassins that have their own kind of rules and currency, its own kind of secret rooms and things like that. So yeah, that's what you have to remember, all these, and it was kind of like, I feel like I needed a kind of like little reminder of the film before going into it, even though I reviewed it and I've seen all the films. But in saying that, I think what wins me over every time is just the production design. These are films made with so much care, the Oscars would never look at these films in terms of production design or costumes or effects, but they're gorgeous, So there's a section at this Osaka Continental Hotel which is just stunning. It's like absolutely jaw-dropping. There's a section in Berlin at a club with waterfalls indoors, which is insane. It's run by Scott Adkins. That's another person to add in along. Scott Adkins is this amazing, if you're into B movies, is this kind of like hunky mixed martial arts fighter who's in a lot of kind of like B movies. And here he's playing a kind of like, he's got a fat suit on and he's playing this kind of German gold-toothed club owner.
I think he's playing a character who, for legal reasons, is different from both Kingpin from the Marvel films and the Penguin from the most recent Batman films.
And also Auric Goldfinger.
Yes.
Yeah, but he's great. And then you think, oh, he's just in a fat suit. But then, of course he gets to kick some ass as well. So it's just full of fun, inventive sequences. And every time it goes to a new city, you think, oh, they're not going to use this city in an interesting way. But yeah, it goes to Paris and it finds interesting ways to use two of the biggest landmarks in Paris. So yeah, it's just a film that I think you have to see in the cinema. It's like you will have a good time even if you know nothing about this. Because I like you say, you don't really need to know anything. All you need to do is sit back and enjoy it. It's just mental, insane carnage.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because so the first John Wick film was such a big deal, and I think that what really helped its success is that it had virtually no plot. Right, it's a retired hitman who comes out of retirement to take revenge on a bunch of like Russian mobsters. Really cut and dry, really simple, and then it's like, okay, we're making a John Wick 2. So that like they're not necessarily doing this because the story's yet to be told, right? They're doing it because they want to make more movies, they want to like get more audiences, and they'll keep innovating and stuff like that. It's just that like I think the more we introduce these factions and backstories and politics and stuff like that, the more the space between fighting scenes gets a bit like contrived and it loses a lot of the simplicity that makes John Wick so good. In the first one, the sort of like continental table world isn't really like embodied like in this one by Bill Skarsgård. It's just sort of suggested, like it contrasts with John Wick's monochrome modernist house by having this like very vibrant neon mise-en-scène. Whereas like by this point, like, Bill Skarsgård has to show up in a very glittery tailcoat to kind of like pretend to be the big villain. And I think that, like they keep innovating throughout the fight scenes, which is the most important thing. I think that's what audiences will really like. But you're right in that the start of John Wick 4 is quite bumpy because it's so entrenched in the plot of the series so far. If fans of the third one will have seen him like go to Morocco and like give his wedding ring to this elder, which he had to, get by severing ties with the Ruska Roma. And by the midway point of John Wick 4, all of this is reversed. He's gotten his wedding ring back. He's back with the Ruska Roma. With these action films, you have to sit down, and at least I have to tell my brain, stop paying attention to the plot because it's definitely not important. But that gets harder and harder for me as time goes on because it's clear that they're just sort of improvising it as they go along. But the action's broken into these sort of 3 set pieces at the beginning, one in Osaka, then in Berlin, then in Paris. And again, I was kind of rolling my eyes about the plot and some of these really weird characters they just keep throwing your way. But by the time we get to Paris, some of them are so innovative, some of them are so cool. They always manage to add new elements. So there's a skirmish on the ring road around the Arc de Triomphe. So you have to like fight each other whilst also dodging unhinged European drivers. So they always are able to and I think there's like a top-down one that's in a like Parisian apartment or whatever that feels very much like a video game, like Hotline Miami or something. And I think that's the thing that everyone's going to be talking about when they go and see this film.
Yeah, I think that the John Wick series remains the best video game adaptation that there has been. It's just that it is an adaptation of the concept of video games.
Yeah.
Because like it has all the hallmarks of like the structure. These films are structured like video games in that you get a mission. You're cover shooting with Rina Sawayama. You're doing a boss battle in a nightclub surrounded by NPCs that won't stop dancing. The like enemy starts coming in waves, and then when the wave ends, you get like a second wave of more equipped enemies. You've got camera that can seemingly go everywhere. You've got a hero who has like all the buffs and a +10 for dodging bullets shot at him from literally a yard away. And there's all these other little things that like kind of feed into this. There are all these shots that me and Lewis were talking about in the office that are basically loading screens for the next bit of the film. There are 3 separate occasions where John Wick is framed in the center of the frame and he walks up some stairs into the path of an incredibly recognizable landmark from the city he has just arrived in. And it's like, this is what you would put in a video game to signify that the rest of the Berlin level would be loaded in 10 seconds once your internet came back on. Like, they're just an incredible, like, they clearly take so much inspiration from, like, martial arts and action cinema from around the world, but they also take so much, influence and inspiration from just modern video games. In the way that the structure is put together and in the way that it tells its story. But I think the main thing that, as we've all said, the combat is still really exciting, really visceral. All the greatest hits of John Wick get an outing. You've got fights in nightclubs, people being attacked by dogs, close-range gunplay in glass rooms filled with neon strip lights. All the hits you could possibly want. People being thrown down flights of stairs. There are the sequence in Paris, which is basically one long 45-minute fight scene in various different hilarious environments, is incredible. It's like really exceptionally done. The kind of top-down sort of like XCOM view scene you were talking about in that apparently somebody was refurbishing their entire like townhouse apartment down the street from the Sacré-Cœur, and then all these guys burst in and start firing like flamethrower shotgun at each other. So the home insurance is going to have a field day with that. But yeah, I think that it still has, as much as the kind of lore has got away from it, it still has that physicality and that like visceral punchy shout. It's got what you want from this kind of action film. And I would bet that Keanu Reeves kills more people in this film than he says words of dialogue. Not lines of dialogue,
almost
words.
definitely.
Yeah, and I would hope so, because unfortunately Keanu Reeves is way better at stage combat than he is at delivering lines.
Well, I actually think he is actually why this works, because I think sometimes revenge films, because that is a kind of revenge film in a way, can be a bit distasteful, so you think of like Clint Eastwood films or, Liam Neeson, there's also something right-wing about them, it's this kind of like re-establishing the patriarchy, that's kind of usually the plot. But it doesn't feel like that with the Keanu Reeves, just because Keanu Reeves is such a kind of nice Zen guy. You don't get the impression that John Wick is really enjoying like stabbing people, like he's basically just trying to survive, and there's something about that gives the films a kind of joyous quality. Like I don't feel like, oh, I've seen a million people be stabbed in the eye, but like I don't feel gross about it.
They're also very well. Maybe dog friendly isn't the right word, but like I think the relationship that the character has with this dog that he like finds is like really endearing.
I think, and you could argue that it's just faceless people being killed, which maybe desensitizes you to violence. But I think there is something about it that it doesn't feel nasty or negative in any way. Like I feel like there's something sort of zen about it. It's like that kind of zen performance you have from Keanu, you know?
Yeah, and I think part of that is because in a lot of these films, there's a presented morality to killing everybody. It's like, I must do this. Whereas in this, it's like, because Keanu Reeves doesn't seem to have, once he's got his bit of revenge, he's basically just like, I'm going to kill all these people because they keep shooting at me. So then it's like, it removes that element from it. So it's like, I can kill all these people with moral impunity. Watch me give this guy a judo takedown and then shoot him in the face. In terms of the rest of the cast, Donnie Yen is brilliant.
He was so good.
Yeah.
He's really good. Ian McShane remains the sassiest man in the world. Bill Skarsgård's French accent, that's a choice.
Yeah, it's very. We were talking about this. Very Monty Python. He pretty much just replaces his R's with W's. That's what he thinks of French.
I'm
accent
sure
is.
that the first words out of his mouth were like, we're wee disappointed in you.
He seemed to give up on that though. I feel like that disappeared throughout the thing. He's just there because he looks amazing in those suits. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like his tailoring is fantastic.
Yeah. And like it does maintain the John Wick thing that like you can tell that somebody is a main character if they are from a country, but they are playing as if they're from a different country. It's like new James Bond where everyone just gets to have a good laugh on tour with the boys.
Yeah.
But instead of killing on a neo-colonial tip for King and Country, John Wick kills because he's just good at it.
Now here's a question. Now this series has been going for about 10 years. But how long has John Wick been killing people? How long has, from the start of the first film to this, it has happened?
The first 3 films take place over a week, which is insane. But I think that, again, you know, the sort of tightness of the earlier films is maybe a little bit lost here because in the fourth one, there's these like big drastic cuts where all of a sudden he's back in Morocco and then he's back in New York and then he's now in Paris and Berlin. So these huge distances that he crosses without us seeing him like waiting at his gate for his flight to be announced or whatever.
Yeah, he's not traveling EasyJet, is he?
Yeah,
Yeah, the spatial geography found dead.
Yeah,
alongside 100 people, some of whom have been partially eaten by a dog.
Yeah, the fourth one, I don't know. Maybe there's some clues if you've got a keen enough eye when we're in that weird sort of accountancy office with all the tattooed clerks and they're like updating his bounty. Maybe there's dates or something like that you can see. But the first 3, I think in the third one, at some point someone mentions that about a week ago he like went on a killing spree.
I reckon it's about a fortnight.
Yeah.
This guy has been killing people and beating people
It's
up.
the worst fortnight of his life.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I agree. Like I'd say the standout sequence is that one in Paris, the kind of overhead shot with these kind of flame throwing guns. I don't know how to explain what they are. But what I love is actually, I mean, that's like obviously lots of like CGI and the camera is like, you know, it's one shot and it's like, I mean, I'm sure there's lots of computer generated stuff happening. But what I really appreciate is just the old school kind of like fight craft as well. There's a sequence where I'll say someone has to fall down several flights of stairs. You know, and it's a very kind of Siphian task kind of joke, but it's like it's a real guy falling downstairs, and it's just like really impressive stunt work, and like that's what I love, just the craft, even just like the basic of falling down the stairs. It does it better than any other film. You know, there's no cutaway. We see the guy go down one flight, then another flight, then another flight. It's funny, but it's also wow, somebody just did that in front of the camera.
I mean, oh sorry.
No, I was just going to say, they also Chekhov's gun it because they threw a guy down a staircase for no apparent reason in the first 20 minutes, and you're like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Maybe this shows that staircases are evil in the John Wick.
my one disappointment was there's a kind of Chekhov sumos.
Yeah,
in
we never
Japan,
see them do anything.
We see 2 sumo wrestlers, and we think, okay, but we're going to have like John Wick fighting some sumo wrestlers, or some sumo wrestlers fighting someone. And come on, like if you have sumo wrestlers in Japan, we want to see that happen.
I mean, like we also talked about Mr. Nobody, who's a really interesting character that doesn't really get to kind of make a case for himself. Like he has this he's performed really, really well. Who's he performed by?
It's Shamir Anderson.
Shmir Anderson. Yeah, like a really imposing, sort of interesting character. The first of his kind that we've seen in the John Wick films, and that he's like really artistic and sort of not very elegant and bespoke. But he never really gets like a massive scene where he kind of gets to justify his presence in the plot. I think that like this, again, like if you start to like look into the script and what's going on, any amount of scrutiny will show that this is just a vehicle to get us from one fight scene to the next.
This is Baroque high camp ultra-violence.
And I love it.
Exactly. The dudes, once more, they rock. So yeah, John Wick is in cinemas everywhere, constantly, all the time. Lewis, I believe, went to see it in 4DX.
Not on purpose.
Not on purpose.
Well, not on accident necessarily. The only screening we could see it in, because it was sold out, because everyone loves it, because it's so thrilling and exciting, we had to go and see it in a much less subscribed 4DX theater.
Nice.
I opened a can of Coke and was like, oh, I've got to finish this in the next 5 minutes, otherwise I'm going to get launched across the room.
In case you're just going to hear a dog barking. Oh no! So I suppose another thing that we wanted to talk about, or I specifically want to talk about, kind of inspired by John Wick, we just wanted to have a wee chat about some other great examples of what I have dubbed in the notes action, punchy, bang, bang, shouty, shooty cinema. Because I think one of the reasons that I want to have a chat about it is because the John Wick films, they do this thing of bringing in different world cinema fighting styles and different ways of looking at a way that you can kick a man in the head. John Wick 2 and 3 in particular, he'll fight some guys from the Raid. So he'll fight them with like hand-to-hand short swords like you would in the Raid. Or he'll move through a room doing his like Navy SWAT team bit because he is American/Canadian. Citation needed. So one film that I want to talk about, which I think is kind of like useful in thinking about this, is Kung Fu Hustle, which feels a bit like the bizarro brother of the John Wick series. Now, Lewis, you haven't seen this. Jamie, have you seen Kung Fu Hustle?
I haven't, no.
Okay, well, I'll tell you both about it now. So it's one of these films where, kind of like John Wick, is very referential to its own genre and to like the craft of cinema in general. Like Kung Fu Hustle's full of these like nods to Hong Kong classics. It's full of like a really diverse mix of like fighting styles, but it also has loads of these like Hollywood movie references. Like one of the fights is like a kind of lift from The Matrix Reloaded. There's these two guys who act exactly like the Blues Brothers. There's like a weird reference to The Shining at some point. But it's really interesting as well as this kind of like inflection point between like martial arts cinema coming from like China and Hong Kong and like Western Hollywood filmmaking. Like it feels like a kind of like a smoosh cut between the two, where it sort of takes the kind of like Looney Tunes, let's all have a laugh, and the traditional martial arts, like let's all fight for honor and valor. And it's like, let's get shot of this honor and valor nonsense. Let's run around throwing axes at each other and having a grand old time. And but then the way it's very different from John Wick is because John Wick has a very staid and focused John Wick expression, whereas Kung Fu Hustle as a film is constantly mugging for the camera and having a bit of a laugh with it. It's basically about a petty criminal who wants to join a gang. He goes to extort the residents of a slum, and it turns out that they are all really good at martial arts. So you end up with these incredible action sequences that are basically like live action Looney Tunes, extremely physical slapstick comedy, which doubles up as extremely funny but incredibly serious punch-ups. It's very funny, it's very goofy, it's very silly. And it came out at the same time, to tie it back into John Wick, it came out at the same time as like kind of MMA was becoming more of a relevant cultural thing. And Donnie Yen, I was reading up on John Wick 4, Donnie Yen has talked about how like people getting interested in like mixed martial arts, kind of renewed interest in martial arts filmmaking, and kind of changed the conversation around punching the fellas.
Yeah, Donnie Yen was in the Ip Man trilogy, which I've not seen, but is meant to be
Is it not those 4 parts now?
Oh, maybe there's 4. I don't know. I need to check my sources. But like, I've not seen, but they're meant to be a big deal because they introduced mixed martial arts to that kind of that cinematic action mainstream.
Well, see, I feel that's not true though, because Enter the Dragon and is like was the whole point of that was like everybody had different skills. So I don't know if that's quite true that they introduced.
Well, maybe not introduced, but certainly like renewed interest in.
But then there's having different styles, and then there's using loads a kind of like melange of styles all at once.
That's true, actually. Yeah.
Like when John Wick gives somebody a kind of like flying armbar, but then he also uses American martial arts, which is to say a large gun aimed at you from very, very close range with no way of defending yourself.
Yeah, I mean, John Wick really does everything, doesn't he? He sort of uses like hand-to-hand combat, he uses weapons, he uses improvised weapons. There's the bit in the third one, I can't remember the name of the guy he's up against.
Is it Bojan Bogdanovic?
That's the one.
The 7'4" basketball player.
That's him, yeah, 7'4" basketball player, which is just one of my, I think it's my favorite fight scene from the entire John Wick franchise, having rewatched them all in preparation for 4. In which, they're just beating each other up with these giant old tomes that they find in the library. But there's like a great physicality to that scene. But so sort of John Wick uses everything, but that's still very different from mixed martial arts. Like mixed martial arts is now becoming its own discipline where you know, it has a set, like a set agreed upon idea of what mixed martial arts is, its move set, its limitations and its possibilities. Whereas John Wick is more just crazy indulgent fantasy where everyone is like a Jedi pretty much.
It's because they wouldn't let you in the cage with a gun or a dog, and I would say rightly so.
Yeah. Just off topic, what is your favourite sequence from John Wick? Because I'm trying to remember what film it's from, but my favourite one is the one in the knife shop, where for some reason they're fighting in a knife shop, and it just means they can use multiple different knives.
Again, having watched them all this weekend, that's the beginning of the third one.
That's the third one.
Immediately after that fight I just mentioned.
Yeah.
So the third one starts so strong.
Is it a knife shop or is it a knife museum?
I thought it was like an antique inventory or something.
I can't remember, but anyway, it's just very fun because, like, you know, put John Wick in with a bunch of knives, and you're gonna have lots of action.
And then that's immediately followed by the most Looney Tunes ass bit of John Wick, where he goes into the horse stables and he uses a horse as an environmental weapon.
Yeah,
he gets
a horse.
Yeah, he slaps a horse on the back and it kicks a man so hard that he goes flying out of shot.
Yeah, you almost like horses sort of show up in John Wick 4. They're not. No one really. They're not like a big deal. The third one, it was like a big deal that he has a horse now, but horses sort of show up. They're a bit of a red herring. They don't turn out to be. There's not as much like fun animal. There's the dog, but doesn't really do much.
Yeah.
Like I said, the tracker guy never really gets to sort of shine the way that I think that he should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jamie, do you have anything from the wide history of action cinema that you'd like to talk about briefly?
Well, there's
to
loads
round
of-
this bit off.
The one I was going to talk about, I was just a little bit inspired by Donnie Yen's performance, because I was going to say, yeah, I agree that's the best performance. And what I liked about it is because he's really thought about how a blind man would fight. And I've got to admit, it doesn't really make sense, his disability, because he seems to be able to shoot people. Like, I never quite understood how he was doing what he was doing. How is he using? They never explain it. It's just like some sort of like. But what I loved is he never seemed to be looking at his targets. I think that's just his skill. He was fighting and he just seemed to know where they were. He wouldn't look at them, so he wasn't using his eyes to fight. And that kind of got me thinking of one of my favourite kind of B-movie, gnarly kind of action films of recent years, which was Upgrade. Didn't you see that?
Oh, who's in Upgrade?
Yeah, it's Logan Marshall Green.
Oh.
So the premise is it's set in the future where technology is everywhere, but this guy is a kind of petrol head and isn't into technology. But what happens is he's in a he's a car accident, sorry, and he severs his spine, and it means he can't walk. But he's given the opportunity of walking again by getting this AI put in his neck, which gives him the power of his limbs. But actually, what happens is the AI can also do more than just let him walk. It can actually make him do anything. So what happens is he has to go and find it's a kind of revenge film similar to John Wick, in that he has to go and find what happened to his wife, because his wife was murdered. It turns out the crash that he had with his wife was actually on purpose. Somebody planned it, and he has to go on a revenge tour. So it's a bit like the $1 Billion Man idea. It's like this guy who's been upgraded from being like that's just normal guy to being a action hero. But the thing is, he's totally oblivious to these powers. So every time he fights, he doesn't know he can do it. So he's like terrified with these powers. So when he's punching a guy in the face or like gouging out somebody's eyes, his face is in awe, or like so it's just like I thought as a performance it was really interesting, because it's from his head up he cannot fight, but from his body down he can, and that reminded me just of Donnie Yen's character, who like from the head up is blind, his eyes cannot help him fight, but his whole body knows how to fight. So that's what it reminded me of, and it was just really well done. It's just like gnarly, it's kind of got a kind of like cyberpunk kind of feel, and yeah, it's just like a really kind of fun, gnarly, very violent action film. Reminds me a bit of like Paul Verhoeven mixed with like like if Paul Verhoeven ever got into the kind of martial art sort of territory, I imagine this is the type of movie he might make. And it's got great ideas as well about kind of AI and sort of technology. But yeah, it's just really a good fun action movie.
Yeah, and speaking of people doing good face acting in action films, I want to give a last shout out to the late great Lance Reddick, who, spoiler inbound for John Wick 4, gets shot right at the start. But he does some actually genuinely good and arresting and make you care acting as someone who is like, in the moment that he is shot, he doesn't just go, oh no. He has the kind of like the wide eyes of someone who is like, well, probably saw this coming. It still doesn't make it any easier when you get here. He is great in all of the John Wicks, and he's amazing in The Wire, and yeah, he will be missed.
It is my favorite convention of the John Wick franchise that Keanu Reeves is always sort of paired up with people who can act way better than him. Willem Dafoe's in the first one, obviously Ian McShane and Lawrence Fishburne are big ones, but yeah, Lance Reddick really, I think, delivers on the very like highbrow, hoity-toity, like classy sort of atmos that they're trying to achieve. I think that he's a big part of that, and it's such a shame that he's gone now.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we will see him again in Ballerina, so that's the series that's based on like a kind of spin-off of John Wick, and like I think Keanu Reeves is going to have a cameo, and Angelica Houston, who is in John Wick 3, is also coming in there. So yeah, that should be fun. It's Anna de Armas who's the like main ballerina assassin, I believe.
Yeah.
So if you're jonesing for more John Wick action, this should deliver, I think.
Yeah. And also Lance Reddick, one of the rare examples in this series of getting the 100% platinum badge for animal husbandry. Because he looks after the dog. Dog's perfectly fine when it leaves.
Yeah.
Dog doesn't have a taste for human flesh. Dog doesn't have the unquenchable thirst for rage and revenge. Just looked after the dog.
Yeah.
Good on him.
Good concierge. I bet he can get you good tickets to any theatre show in London, in New York as well.
I mean, it's the line that he delivers in the second one where he first takes care of the dog, where like John Wick's like, "Oh, can you take care of my dog?" And Lance Reddick says, "Oh, I'm afraid that this facility does not offer that service. I, however, would be happy to take on the task," and it's very charming. It's like he's immediately likable.
This facility doesn't, but I, a legend, can help you out. Okay, and I think that's about us for today, isn't it?
I think so.
Cool. Well, it just remains for me to thank Lewis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Cheers, Peter.
Thanks to Upload Studios and to Ethan in the booth, uploadstudios.co.uk. We will be back in 2 weeks' time with more chat about the films, and Anahit will presumably be back from London. If you want to get us on socials, it's at The Skinny Mag. And if you want to get tickets for those Return to Seoul or matinee screenings, they are free. But if you're going to get tickets, do actually come. Seems like a fair deal, I think. theskinny.co.uk/tickets for those. You can find all the old episodes in the feed. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Go forth and punch them. No, that's a bad. Go forth in violence, my friends.
Our tagline can be what Jamie said earlier, which is everything would be better if you were concussed.
Drum roll off, and we're done.